market manipulation, I'll tell you, here's a good example. Until recently, the majority of California homeowners, the majority of California residents were homeowners. And today, the majority of Californian residents are renters. So that's what you can expect across the country, because it's still a little over 60% of the nation that are homeowners. And they've been taught to believe by the mainstream media and other sources out there, these politicians and the banksters, that it's good that their house is going up in value because, of course, that's money in their pocket in equity that they can pull out and buy a new car or buy a major appliance or something. So it's good for them, they believe. But are they thinking ahead? Are they thinking ahead to their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren? Are they seeing the dwindling percentage of homeowners and realizing that's going to be their lineage someday that inherits that world, where their cost of living continues to increase through inflation with no cost of living adjustments for the average worker? So your standard of living is continually diminished. That's what happened. This is the debasement of the currency. It's a deliberate, intentional thing that's being foisted on the public by this banking elite and the political minions, whores that go along with this. And then I would inject in there the mainstream media as being culpable 100% too. They're all part of this whole thing, this charade. In order for it to go on and for all this stuff to just go by day and we just let it go and say, well, I guess there's nothing we can do. You know, poverty increasing, and the crime level is high with crimes of financial desperation out there. And the mainstream media never points these things out. You see on the surface how ridiculous that is. The things that they omit from being newsworthy, like how can we get the crime level down? Oh, by ending poverty. Oh, well, how do we end poverty? Oh, with sound currency. Sound currency. How do we attain sound currency? With accountability, with checks and balances. Okay? It's got to be a demand. It cannot be a polite request. We, the people, if we don't stand up against these monsters, we're going to have a continual decline in our standard of living. We're going to be living more and more on the edge, more and more desperate. I have a friend from Palestine. He has a friend that told him, he said, it's like everybody in America is living in a motel. And I said, you know what? He's right. He's right. He said, hey, in Palestine, the government, if the people can't afford to buy a home, they buy them a home. You understand what we've got here? Is that communistic? Is that socialist? Is it really? Is it really? Well, then what is price fixing? What is that? What is market manipulation? That's just pure what? Fascist capitalism? Because it really isn't capitalism. Capitalism indicates there's competition. That if you're a lender and you overextend yourself and you do something stupid, capitalism dictates you must fall on your face and lose everything you've got. So why aren't the people that cause the problems in America with the debt, with the debasement of the currency, why aren't their feet held to the fire and they're held to task to solve the problem they created? When they're the ones walking around with the billions of trillions of dollars that they put us in debt to the Chinese, where they've got suicide nets for the workers, it's so miserable over there, forced abortion. They've got 5,000 executions a year. And you wonder why they don't have a higher prison population? They're killing them off. And then they harvest their organs. They've got mobile execution vans that can harvest the organs nice and fresh. So yes, you can see I get a little excited when I talk about this stuff, because to me it's abhorrent. It's unacceptable, untenable. And I say to myself, you know what? I've got to reach out, and that's why I do these videos. I'm trying to reach out to people and try to put the same seed in their heart and mind and their spirit and soul to say, you know what? I can fight this thing. It might be a losing battle, because prophecy says in the Bible, for instance, that things have to turn out this way, and anybody that stands in the way of prophecy being fulfilled is against God. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to pretend to do that. But I am sure not going to be silent, because that is not what Jesus taught. Okay, he was very outspoken, and he was hated because of it. And I know that myself and others like myself that are outspoken about truth, because that's really what it all comes down to. That truth cannot be both true and false. It's only one thing. Every word has a meaning. And the Spirit of God is called the Spirit of truth. And so I need to relay that. I need to help people out of confusion, out of what is termed as the Babylon factor, I call it. And, you know, it's confusion. It's just that we're like speaking different languages. If I say a word and you've got one idea set in your mind, for whatever reason, you've got that word established in your mind as meaning a certain thing, and I've got an idea set in my mind of what it means, and then the dictionary definition is nebulous, ambivalent, and you're not sure what the hell really the meaning of the word is anymore, so you just abandon it. You say, yeah, well, you know, I don't want to talk about it anymore. You know, instead of having a productive conversation, and so that we can have a meeting of the minds and we can have, you know, productive dialogue, you know, productive discourse. Then what have we got? We've got nothing. We're in Babylon. We're in confusion. So back to the issue of things that divide us in the school of conservative and liberal, and like I pointed out, I identify strongly with both camps. Let's look at the issue of taxation. And let's ask ourselves what that's all about and how the system has manipulated our minds. Now, before I do, I want to digress back to the top manipulators. We've got the banking class, which is the top policymakers, the money printers, in alignment with the political class, transcending conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. Then we've got the mainstream media. All these groups are complicit in towing the party line full of lies. And then we've got the school system, K through 12 and beyond, the university level. All these people, whether intentionally or unintentionally, advertently or inadvertently, all these people are maintaining the party line of confusion, of, you know what, you know, controversy is painful and confronting evil is painful, and, you know, just don't do it. You know, just have your little beliefs and stay to yourself and, you know, go on your merry way and try to enjoy your life as best you can with all the unnecessary, miserable suffering out in the world, the increasing misery and suffering through war and poverty and crime. All this invented suffering, totally unnecessary. I'm not talking about accidents or natural disasters, diseases, any of those other problems that we have that we can't really get away from. I'm talking about the stuff we have a right to be away from. We have a right to be away from these wicked people. And so back to taxation now. I've got a great idea, and I call it reverse taxation. And I'll explain. In other words, the government, who we have elected, appointed, instead of extracting taxes from the population, pays taxes to the population. Now let me ask you, why on earth would anybody from a conservative camp object to that? Why? I can't imagine a single reason why anybody that says they hate taxes, the Tea Party group, well, taxes are bad, you know, they don't want to talk about it, taxes are bad. Okay? Why any of them would be against it? Because what could be better? Instead of you being told you got to pay taxes, I'm telling you, you get taxes paid to you. Now, conversely, I'm going to talk to the liberals. So you think taxes are so great, huh? Taxes is the answer to solve society's social economic woes, huh? Okay, well then let's raise them. You say property taxes are good because it takes care of this and that program and this and that group that we need in society, the firefighters and the police and this city office and that city function. Okay? And I say to you, then let's raise them. Let's get them up, man. You're not paying enough. Let's get those taxes up there, man. 50% of the value of your house every year you got to pay. You think you're renting from the government now with your puny 1 or 2% property taxes? You ain't seen nothing yet, man. You get how ridiculous this argument becomes? Am I getting through to anybody? I hope if I get through to one person and they can relay the way I'm seeing things to somebody else, and they can relay it to somebody else like a chain reaction, knowledge on the earth increases because you teach me, I teach you, we all teach each other, and we lift ourselves out of this invented muck and mire, okay? So what is the answer? So you say, well, if the government's paying me, where are they getting the money? Well, they're getting the money from the natural resources. And you want to know what the main natural resource is, and most people don't know this? It's labor. The labor force is your greatest, every single country's greatest asset. Every single country's greatest natural resource is your labor force. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This belongs to all of us. All of us. Not to mention all the inherent resources like the gold and the silver and the oil and the titanium and the sun energy and the water resources, the timber resources, the fish, the agriculture. All this stuff belongs to everybody. So that's where the taxation to pay the general public comes from, to ensure that everybody has not only a minimum standard of living, but a steadily increasing standard of living. And I know right now what a lot of you are thinking. We're going to destroy the earth by burning dirty fuel. Okay? We're going to wreck it with CO2. And let's not even talk about the CO2 that one volcano puts out, and how are you going to stop it? That's Mother Nature's doing her job. Or how are you going to stop one natural forest fire? Which they haven't figured. If they could stop the volcanoes, they'd probably try to do that. But they're woefully inept at stopping forest fires. In fact, they make the problem worse. This is why you've got these horrific fires today that burn very hot, because they've allowed the underbrush, by putting out the fires Mother Nature starts, they allow the underbrush to grow up, which is very unnatural. And that's why you've got these terribly hot fires that are very destructive. I say, yeah, you can put out the fires to protect structures. That's fine with me. You know, but don't usurp Mother Nature. And then you got them usurping the climate, for crying out loud. You know, California's been suffering under drought. We got some rain recently, but you hear all this fear-mongering in the press anyhow, and you say, hey, you know what? Maybe these clowns are causing it. Okay, because when you create an artificial layer of clouds above the ocean, for example, and you block the sun's ability to evaporate the water, I mean, this is simple science. And you reduce the amount of evaporation from the ocean, which creates the clouds that rain over the land. Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe these people, and there's no accountability. Again, all these usurpers, all these mad scientists, these evil geniuses, these master sorcerers have nobody to answer to. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine not having to answer to anybody? They're the untouchables, and they sicken me. And all the sycophantic minions that go along with the system, they sicken me as well. And you all need to repent or perish, because that's all I've really got to offer you. I'm not going to threaten you with violence, but I would like to threaten you with arrest. I wish more decent, high-ranking law enforcement out there within the FBI or whatever agencies you got out there that have the authority to arrest, start arresting these money printers. Say, no, we're not going to accept greater debt. You're out of business, man. You're bankrupt. Talk about bankrupt. What is debt? Debt is like bankruptcy to the nth degree. Don't you see? These people don't want us in debt to the nth generation. Forget that silly notion. They want us in debt in perpetuity, forever. And you don't think you have a right? Not for yourself. Maybe you don't give a crap about your financial well-being. What about your children? Okay? That's what it all comes down to. The love of money is the root of all evil. So how do we get out of it? How do we make money irrelevant? There's only one way I've ever stumbled across, and that's by universal prosperity. And yes, it should be established at birth, so that you were born free into a 100% voluntary-based reality as opposed to the one you have. A 100% slave-based reality where if you don't serve the God of this world, the money God, properly, then you get squat, you get diddly. You might get a few crumbs, but that's it. You can beg and plead. But you know what? If the God of this world decides not to have mercy on your soul, then you're out of luck. Okay, so we've settled